Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. We're going to start out with two athletes tonight. The first is Luis Olmo, who died recently at the age of 97. Luis Olmo was the oldest living Brooklyn Dodger, played for the Dodgers in the mid-40s, even before they signed Jackie Robinson. And he was also one of the first Puerto Rican players to play in the major leagues. Outside of Cuban players, he was actually the first Latino position player to play in the major leagues, and he led the way for many of the great Latin players who came after him, including Roberto Clemente and Orlando Cepeda. According to the Boston Globe, Luis Olmo, who became the first Puerto Rican position player in the major leagues when he made his debut with the 1943 Brooklyn Dodgers, helping to create a path for dozens of Puerto Rican ball players who have had a major effect on the game, died Friday in Santurce, Puerto Rico. He was 97 and had been the oldest living former Dodger. He played mostly in the outfield, arriving a year after Hiram Bithorn, a right-hand pitcher, became the first Puerto Rican major leaguer when he joined the Chicago Cubs. Cubans had appeared in the majors before Bithorn and Olmo arrived. Latinos began having a significant effect in American baseball only after Jackie Robinson broke the modern major league color barrier with the 47 Dodgers. By the 1950s, black Latino players most notably feature Hall of Famers Roberto Clemente and Orlando Cepeda, along with Vic Power and Ruben Gomez, all Puerto Rican natives, and Minnie Minoso, Cuban, had established themselves in the majors. Mr. Olmo, a native of Arecibo on Puerto Rico's northern shore, made his Dodgers debut July 23, 1943, and batted .303 as a rookie. He was described by Tim Cohane in October 1943 issue of the Sporting News as a strongly built youngster who could run like a Western Conference halfback, throw like a DiMaggio, and meet the ball solidly and with extra base power. Despite his promise, Mr. Olmo did not fare well in a non-negotiation over salary with the Dodgers general manager. Before the end of the season, I asked Branch Rickey for a raise for the 1944 season, Mr. Olmo recalled. Rickey called in his secretary and told her to get me an airplane ticket to go back home. I changed my mind about the raise. Mr. Olmo, a right-handed hitter, drove in 85 runs in 1944, although his average dropped to .258. He batted .313 the next season, drove in 110 runs, had a National League leading 13 triples, hit 10 homers, and stole 15 bases. The summer of 45 would be the high point of his career. In spring of 1946, he was among some 20 major league players, a number of them Latinos, who signed with a newly formed Mexican league, which was offering salaries far in excess of their major league pay. The players were barred by Major League Baseball for 5 years for jumping to an outlaw league, but the suspensions were rescinded after 3 years. Mr. Olmo returned to the Dodgers in the middle of the 49 season, hit .305, and homered in their World Series loss to the New York Yankees. But with Duke Snider playing center field and Carl Furillo in right, he was expendable. Rickey traded Mr. Olmo on Christmas Eve to the Boston Braves. They released him during the 1951 season, and he retired with a .281 career batting average. Mr. Olmo was among several Dodgers invited back to Brooklyn in May of 1983 for a celebration of the Brooklyn Bridge's 100th anniversary. He said, "I still remember the Dodger fans, lots of Puerto Ricans even in those days. They would talk to me in Spanish. Almost always nice things, except when you struck out." Well, from baseball, we're going to move on to swimming. And Adolph Kiefer, who died recently at the age of 98, one of the great swimmers in American history, perhaps our greatest backstroker. He was also our oldest living gold medalist. He was the last surviving gold medalist from the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Adolph Kiefer was a nice German boy born in Chicago, went to Roosevelt High School, just like my producer Sid and my mother. Again, I think Roosevelt High School has the most graduates in these podcasts, at least 3 in the recent weeks. He would swim anywhere he could. He started swimming in the Metropolitan Canal. Then he took the streetcar with his Jewish friends over to the JCC. He lost his first race when he was 11, but he didn't lose many after that. He had quite a colorful life. He met Hitler at the 1936 Olympics. One of his best friends was Jesse Owens, and one of his golf partners was Ted Williams. He turned down a chance to go to Hollywood and be a Johnny Weissmuller type, and he taught thousands of sailors how to swim during World War II, thereby saving many lives. And he said that his best swim instructor was Stan Musial. Here's the story of Adolph Kiefer from the International Swimming Hall of Fame.
As a child, he hated getting water up his nose, so he swam on his back. His father, a German-born candy maker, died when he was only 12, but encouraged his son to be the best swimmer in the world. Working furiously to make this a reality, he swam in any pool he could. When all other pools were closed on Sundays, he would hop onto trucks, jump streetcars, anything to get to the pool at the Jewish Community Center. He firmly believes that the reason he became a world champion is simple. He swam more than anyone else. At the 1933 World's Fair, he worked as a lifeguard in the Baby Ruth pool, which hosted exhibitions by swimming champions. Kiefer pestered one recognizable figure in attendance, Tex Robertson, captain of the University of Michigan swim team, until Tex finally agreed to coach him. That Thanksgiving, Adolph Kiefer hitchhiked to Michigan, where Robertson coached him. Another coach, Matt Mann, inquired, "Who's that kid in the pool?" Robertson replied, "Kiefer, I'm helping him." Taking out his watch, Mann said, "Let's see that kid swim 100. Kiefer swam it. Mann looked at his watch and said, "I don't believe this. Do it again." Kiefer did. Dumbfounded, Mann replied, "You just broke the world record twice." While still in high school, Adolph Kiefer became the first man to break the minute barrier in the 100 yards backstroke. A year later, when just 18 years old, he broke the world record 3 times and won the gold medal at the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin. Throughout his era, he was the proud holder of every official world backstroke record for men. None of his backstroke records were broken until 1950, 4 years after he retired from competition. In more than 2,000 races, only twice did he lose. While there may be some speculation as to whether Adolph Kiefer actually invented the modern backstroke, no one can deny he perfected it. Kiefer became an international phenomenon. Madison Avenue cashed in on his marketing appeal. Hollywood offered him the golden screen, promising him lover roles. Married, Kiefer abandoned such notions, returning home to his wife and children. For a man with such passion for swimming, it is no surprise that Adolph Kiefer has given back to his beloved sport whenever possible. As a lieutenant in World War II, he conducted a global survey of shipwrecks, documenting the enormous and unnecessary toll of GI deaths resulting from inadequate swimming instruction. He discovered that 25% of the white sailors were non-swimmers, compared to 90% of blacks, and told his commanding officer more lives were being lost at sea due to drowning than bullets. He proposed a new way to teach water safety at sea, and developed the Victory Backstroke. As a result, Kiefer was put in charge of swimming for the entire Navy, and over 33,000 Navy swimming instructors learned how to teach sailors how to stay alive in the water, ultimately saving countless lives. In 1946, he established Adolph Kiefer and Company, a sporting goods company that sold and manufactured everything but the water. His first successful product was the Kiefer suit. The silk shortage from World War II caused Kiefer to consider using nylon fabric for suits, as the full-body competitive suit requirement had just been lifted. Adolph offered a viable option to the wool suits still worn by many beachgoers. The Kiefer suits were great for swimmers, improved everyone's time, no matter how risque for the era. Since World War II, Kiefer has remained a prominent figure in the swimming world, serving as a liaison between industry and competitive swimming. His company provides official aquatic supplies in every capacity, including numerous Olympics. Adolph donates much of his time and efforts helping youngsters learn to swim, even supplying pools in many impoverished neighborhoods. His ambitious schedule of lecturing, philanthropy, and coaching has done much to make America a swimmingly safe nation, fashionably appareled. Today, Adolph Kiefer continues to run his business with Joyce, his beloved wife of 66 years. Swimming has never forsaken him, and he still seeks out a pool for his daily swim. Adolph Kiefer, Gold Medallion recipient.
Well, we're going to move on now to our feature, Julius Youngner, who died recently at the age of 96. Julius Youngner was one of the great virologists of the 20th century, and he was the last surviving member of the team of Jonas Salk that developed the polio vaccine in the 1950s and saved countless lives. Julius Youngner was a nice Jewish boy born in New York City at Vander Childs High School. Something of a prodigy, graduated school at 15. He worked on the Manhattan Project, although he didn't work directly on the bomb. He was at the University of Rochester testing the effects of uranium and plutonium salts on animals. After that, he moved to the University of Pittsburgh, and that's where he did his work with Jonas Salk. They worked together on developing the polio vaccine. Dr. Youngner made 3 key advances in the vaccine research. He first figured out a way to break down monkey cells so that the team could grow large amounts of polio virus in the lab. Then, after the group began to work on a vaccine, Dr. Youngner developed a way to inactivate the virus so it safely could be injected as a vaccine, and then he developed tests to see how effective it was in the first human patients. Here in an interview at the University of Pittsburgh, he talks about the actual field testing.
This trial was in 54, is that right?
The big trial.
Correct.
We did smaller ones locally, yes. We did phase 1, what they would call phase 2 trials locally. The phase 3 trial was the big trial in 1954, the results of which came out in 1955. That was 800,000 children were involved in 12 different states, and there'll never be another trial ever like this. It was a unique event.
Did you ever inject yourself with the vaccine?
Oh, yes. And my kids with homegrown stuff, not with commercially produced stuff. If we were going to go out and do school children, how could we say we didn't inject our own children? So my son and my daughter both got the shot.
It's interesting because the Salks did the same with his family, and Sabin did the same with his family. Many investigators who developed vaccines in the 50s did that. It was the practice.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Not allowed to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
I'll tell you, that's a little amazing to me because I actually worked with Dr. Youngner's son at Case Western Reserve. He was a medical ethicist psychiatrist, and he never told me about that. Dr. Youngner also had a falling out with Dr. Salk, and here's the genesis of it. It was the mishap where Cutter Labs gave live vaccine to hundreds of children.
And when I got back, Jonas had come back, the hero of the world. I went to him and told him my experiences in Oakland at the Cutter Labs, and that they didn't know what they were doing, and I think that their vaccine shouldn't be used because I wouldn't trust it to give to my kids. Something should be done about it, and I thought I would write a letter. I would communicate this to the Bureau of Biologics, which would be for the FDA, and to Basil O'Connor, who was head of the National Foundation. And Jonas said to me, I think it would be better and make more sense if I sent the letter and informed them. And I cannot find in the archives any such letter, and he never did it. I felt personally responsible for being so naive as to trust him to do something. He didn't want to do it because it would have soiled his reputation, which was a high point, and would have made it very difficult for the vaccine for any manufacturer to be issued until more testing was done. For the rest of my life, I felt very guilty for being so naive as to think that he would do it. And those 250 kids who died from Cutter vaccine have haunted me to this day.
Just for the record, only 10 or 11 kids died from the Cutter incident, not 250. A lot of people didn't like Jonas Salk. He rubbed a lot of them the wrong way, but Dr. Youngner's always been pretty tough on him, and you have to remember, Dr. Salk's not here to defend himself. Finally, Dr. Youngner reflects on his life.
It's a strange life that I've led because in the 20th century, I was involved in one of the major events that was used to kill people. And later on, within a decade, I was involved in a project that was designed to save lives. So there was this dichotomy in my feelings about the horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and finally, when the vaccine was finally licensed and used, and all the lives that were saved, it was just like a separation of the two parts of the 20th century for me.
Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps, and we're going to close tonight with Dick Contino, who died recently at the age of 87. Dick Contino was a real 50s guy. He was a really good-looking accordion player, and he might have had a bigger career, but he got caught up in a draft dodging problem in the Korean War. It took him a couple years to recover, but he managed to get on Ed Sullivan a lot, played in a B movie or two, and he was the subject of a James Ellroy novel in 1994 called Dick Contino's Blues. As a final tribute to Dick Contino, we're going to close with his opus magnum. This is the accordion number he will always be associated with, Lady of Spain.